That belongs in a museum! So do you!
Stellaris First Contact is bringing a massive rework to the way minor artifacts work in Stellaris. We're getting a whole host of new Archeo-Technologies, an entirely new technology branch that will be filling up the Society research tree. And in this video, I'm going to break down everything we know so far about the new Archeo-Tech. We're going to be getting Archeo-Tech Weapons, Archeo-Tech Defences, Archeo-Tech Buildings, and much more, including some very, very powerful, unique Archeo-Tech buildings and modules when we complete our precursor chains. But before we dive into any of that, I need to take a moment to talk about the sponsor of this video, HelloFresh US. When spending so much time in an engrossing game like Stellaris, it can be difficult to take care of our base needs. And that's where HelloFresh comes in. With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered directly to you. You can count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy and affordable. With their fast and fresh recipes, HelloFresh's latest line of meals features robust flavors and filling portions that can be ready in less than 15 minutes, getting you back to Stellaris in no time whatsoever. To try HelloFresh, click the link below for a special limited time discount plus free shipping. The Archeo Engineers Ascension Perk is a brand new Ascension Perk that is completely tied into all of this new Archeo technology. Combining proven archaic technology with contemporary engineering will give us a timeless advantage. Archeo-Tech weapons damage plus 33%, and additionally unlock additional effects for ancient ship components and buildings. Now, that second part is probably more important than the first. That is actually going to be giving us lots and lots of extra bonuses for the possibly more important piece of this puzzle, which is the buildings, and I don't just mean on the planet, but also on your star bases. Before we go through any of the super special technology or any of the unique buildings you'll have to finish a precursor chain to unlock, let's start right at the beginning with the new faculty of Archeostudies. This is basically like a souped up research lab. This one, I believe, is the version you get once you've taken the Archeo Engineers Ascension perk, and also I think it's upgraded somehow compared to a previous version we've seen in other dev diaries, because the previous version only gave us 3 Archeo Engineer jobs. This faculty of Archeostudies has an empire limit of 1, you're going to get a 100% research speed to all Archeostudy technology, which is massive, and you'll get 5 Archeo Engineer jobs. Yes, it requires some minor artifacts to build, but 42 minor artifacts is a lot less than it used to be. And that's because we're going to be getting minor artifacts generated from some of our dig sites. At the end of finishing a dig site from now on, occasionally they will produce a minor artifact deposit and give us some of those minor artifacts each month. On top of that, Archeo engineers are basically researchers producing research, a lot of society research, which is what you need for all of these Archeo technologies, or at least that's what it seems anyway so far. We cannot be sure if the actual weapon and defensive technology is a society research option, but I suspect it actually might be, and this will go a long way towards balancing out the various different trees. Let's try not to go on too much of a tangent here yet though. So if you build this faculty on a relic world, you'll get an additional 50% research speed buff to Archeostudies. That is plus 150% before any other bonuses, which is, I mean, you could probably get your research speed up in the late game to 250%, which is absolutely bonkers. On top of that, all of your Archeo engineers will generate minor artifacts each month. Your initial research lab on your capital, if you have the Relic World origin, actually starts as the, I believe, downgraded version of this with 3 Archeo engineers, meaning you'll be generating 1.5 minor artifacts every month right from the start of the game. These new minor artifact buildings, weapons and technologies are some of the most interesting changes I think we've seen for quite a while. Now we have here one of the, I would say, craziest new technologies if you're a defensively minded empire. If you're the kind of player that likes to turtle up and wants to get the biggest and most powerful starbase you possibly can, this is exactly the technology you will want. Ancient ramparts. Defense platforms are a cost-effective way to ensure our safety, but they need to be monitored from an operations center. fortifying our starbase to ensure its survivability in the event of an attack, and maximising our capacity to network independent orbital defences would give us more time to dispatch reinforcements. This is going to give you extra ship hull points, aka starbase hull points, extra armor hit points, and 10% armor hardening. So if you stack 6 of these on a citadel, you'll be at 60% armor hardening. You'll also get +2 defense platform cap. If we put 6 of these on, that's not just +12, all of the other multiplicative bonuses will apply to this, so we can probably fit in another 20 to 30 additional defense platforms on our star bases from a maxed out Ancient Rampart edition. On top of the fact it's going to be granting us a whole lot more in terms of ship hull points and armor hit points, this is one of the best technologies we have seen for quite a while if you are of the turtling persuasion. Somewhat complementing the previous Rampart is the Ancient Shield Overcharger. This is going to give you +50% shield hit points and +50% shield hardening on your starbase, and all of your defense platforms will also be getting a shield hit point and hardening bonus of 25%. Now, I actually don't think this is that amazing. It has an upkeep cost in exotic gases, which could be kind of annoying if you're trying to put these on multiple different star bases. And then on top of that, shields are not the main hit point area of any of our star bases. They are mainly hull followed by armor, with shields in a very significantly last place, generally making up around 5 to 10% of the overall hit points of any starbase. So whilst this is nice, I really don't think it's actually going to be very important to us. And if you're enjoying this video, please, I'd like you to know that that like button belongs in a museum. I'm going to look at the weapons and defences next, as well as the auras and that sort of thing, because there are quite a few bits and pieces here, but I want to preface this by saying, whilst the weapons are really interesting to see, I actually don't think they hold much of a candle to the strategic impact some of the Precursor buildings, the Precursor artifact buildings, are going to have on our games in future. But let's dive in with that preface said. The first of these new weapons we're going to look at is the Ancient Nanomissile Cloud Launcher. This weapon is basically if you want to laugh in the face of any possible idea of point defense on the part of your opponent. The damage is dismal, 3 to 5 every shot. However, the cooldown is 0.85. Yes, 0.85. This weapon fires almost as fast as point defense actually fires. Meaning you put 3 of these down things on a Corvette, there is no way on God's good earth any other Corvettes with point defense will be able to stop your incoming missiles. It just defies belief. This is still not an amazing weapon, I have to say, I don't think, at least anyway. The average damage is very low, the level 5 missile is better, but if you're coming up against point defense and unable to beat it, this is just a really interesting option. When it comes to fighters, we have the Ancient Driller Drones. These strikecraft are, I believe, somehow based on the Ancient Mining Drones, possibly, but that is just an assumption I'm making given the naming conventions we're seeing here. They do have some similarities though in the weapon output, minus 50% shield damage, so these fighters actually can't fire through shields, which is unique for fightercraft. However, they have plus 100% armor penetration and plus 25% hull damage. So in the current meta where we're seeing lots and lots of armor, very few shields in the majority, and I think with the advent of patch 3.7 and cloaking, we will see less and less shields because shields go down completely while you're cloaked and only regenerate slowly when you decloak or uncloak. Now I think we may actually have a place for this weapon in our arsenal. It's really quite an interesting one though, because that armor penetration means that as long as your opponent has no shields, you'll just slide right on through and deal 25% extra damage direct to the hull, as if you've basically got a better disruptor. When it comes to kinetic artifact weapons, we have the Ancient Macro Batteries. These have very, very low accuracy, only 50% accuracy, but quite high tracking at 50%. Having said that, this is a small weapon we're looking at, so that tracking isn't anything out of the ordinary when we compare it to something like a small laser. This has relatively okay damage, it's not that great. Later tier weaponry would seem to outclass this, and it just seems to have the same modifiers as a regular kinetic weapon, plus 50% shield damage and minus 50% armor damage. I'm confused as to what kind of niche this could occupy, if any. The new artifact beam weapon is the Ancient Cavitation Collapser. This is an energy weapon, of course, and like energy weapons it has lower shield damage but increased armor damage. Unlike most energy weapons, it also has plus 50% armor penetration. So this will act somewhat like a laser, but also a little bit like a disruptor, bypassing half of that armor and going straight into the hull. It doesn't benefit from the new plus 25% that regular lasers get, but it does look to be quite a powerful weapon. I actually can't wait to get my hands on this one and try it out in some field tests. We also have a new X-slot weapon, the Ancient Saturator Artillery, or as I think the devs might like to call it, the Shields Be Gone gun. This one deals a whopping 150% shield damage, though suffers massively when it comes up to armor with minus 75%. It does get a bit of a buff to hull damage, but with the current massive number of hit points you get from putting armor modules on your ship, I really can't see this weapon being terribly useful. Coming up against armor, it's going to be completely impotent. We also have a new Titan beam weapon. This goes on the T slot on your Titans, and for the first time ever, we will have a choice between the regular Titan beam, which is the Perdition beam, and this, the Ancient Ruination Glare. I had to spend quite a bit of time staring at the numbers between this and the regular Titan beam to actually work out the difference, because they are very similar. Both deal between 5,000 and 10,000 damage per shot, both have an accuracy of 85%, but then we get to things that are quite a bit different. The range of this Titan beam is only up to 125. That is half of the 250 range of the normal Titan beam. Additionally, it deals much less damage to shields at minus 50%, much more damage to armor at plus 75%, and because it has a cooldown of only 14.5 days, it shoots almost 40% faster, putting its average damage way up there at almost 440, which is pretty darn high. This is a rapid fire equivalent to the regular Titan beam that should have serious consideration on whether or not you might actually want it on your ships. Yes, you'll miss out on that first initial shot, but also you will no longer have to deal with the fact that your Titan fleets will engage the enemy much earlier than any other fleet without that darn Titan beam in it. Because that has for some time been a massive pain in my backside when you have a mixture of fleets. One or two have Titans in, the rest don't, and the Titan equipped fleets charge out to the front because they've happened to engage much sooner. The new Archeo weapon, the Ancient Ruination Glare, will change all of that. Before we switch over into the new defensive modules and auras, we should look at a weapon that lies somewhere between offense and defense, and that is the new point defense. The ancient defensive web slinger, Spider-Man in a capsule I have to assume, will, I don't know, really be anything at all. So the average damage of this point defense is higher. You've also got some weird armor penetrations thrown in there, negative on the shield damage, a reduction in shield damage, which is completely normal, but really, I just don't quite see the point. I would have to test this weapon a few times to see if it actually behaves differently than a regular point defense, if it's particularly more effective or possibly better when you're not fighting against missiles to have this weapon because it deals slightly more damage. That way it is better against fighting normal ships, possibly, but overall I can't see this one being that useful. Moving fully into the defensive side of things, we have a new armor module as well as a new shield module. Let's look at the armor first. So this is the Ancient Pulse Armor. This gives you armor, which is great, and on top of that, it gives you shield and shield regen. Yes, you heard me correctly. This armor gives you armor and shields. Now it does take power, but that power draw is relatively low. So I'm thinking we might actually be able to stack up a bunch of these on our ship and just run Ancient Pulse Armor, and therefore we get armor and shields without having to pick between them. Do note though, with all of these things, the minor artifact cost per module is actually relatively high. This means per ship we could be looking at hundreds of minor artifacts if we equip them with artifact weapons and defences. Stretched out over a massive fleet, that may become an astronomically high cost that our economy simply can't afford. Especially given the fact that as of yet, we haven't seen that we'll be able to buy or sell minor artifacts on the galactic market. The shield-based artifact defense is the Ancient Suspension Field. This one grants us shield hit points and shield regen like a normal shield, and then additionally shield hardening. If we take the Archeo-Engineers perk as well, you can see it adds an extra 60% on top of those regular shield hit points. That shield hardening though, let's say we stack, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these and maybe put the shield hardening module on our ship as well, we can quite easily get to 100% shield hardening. That will effectively deaden bypass weaponry of any kind, which is really, really powerful. If you don't need to go cloaked, if you as well don't need to run lots of armor, if you can afford to run shields, these might actually end up being the best shields we have around, given the proclivity that bypass weapons like missiles, disruptors, and on top of that, fighters have in the current game. Last up in this weapon and defenses category, we have a brand new Titan aura. This is the Ancient Target Scrambler. It doesn't do much, but what it does do is very simple and very effective. +5 chance to evade. That is base chance to evade, so will be modified, I believe, by any of the evasion modifiers we get, like afterburners and the like. Being able to put this on a Titan might mean, in combination with some other bonuses out there, we can get close to getting 70+% evasion back on our destroyers, and possibly getting evasion destroyers back in the meta. This is really quite an interesting and exciting component to be seeing. We should, however, temper our enthusiasm. It is clearly a late game component. First off, it's for Titans, and second off, it's going to take 20,000 research for this one technology. If we've got a faculty of Archeostudies though, that time should get more than cut in half. Let's move over now and look at the Precursor artifact buildings that we're going to be able to get our hands on. Now, when you're looking at the numbers here, some of these buildings have and some have not benefited from the Archeo-Engineers perk, so take the numbers you see with a slight pinch of salt. They may be the slightly more powerful numbers, or in some cases the slightly less powerful numbers, and of course these numbers may be subject to change when patch 3.7 actually drops. But I think that for a lot of these buildings, they may have some almost game-altering effects on the way we can play. And I am really, really excited to be able to start using them very, very soon. I'll start with the 3 that you've already seen, and first, and probably least in my own opinion, is the Bowel Organic Plant. This gives your farmers extra food, they produce some consumer goods, and you get some farmer jobs. Yeah, I hate farmers. I hate this. I don't want to see it ever again.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
This is the Cybrex mining hub. It's going to grant you plus 100% mining station output, in this case plus 150% with that Ascension Perk active. That could be quite juicy in your systems. It has a minor upkeep in energy, but otherwise that's just free real estate. We have seen the Zroni Stormcaster once before in a dev diary. However, we have not seen the awesome potential once we take Archeo-Engineering. This creates an artificial storm in whichever system you build it, and it is not Empire unique. You can put one of these on every starbase if you have the Zro upkeep to actually keep it going. That artificial storm will block sensors, reduce ship speed and fire rate, nullify shields, and on top of that, constantly damage hostile ships in the system. This must be the most powerful defensive module we have ever seen in Stellaris. We are controlling the weather of space itself. We're getting rid of all shields, not just minus 20% all shields. This Zroni Stormcaster will be the go-to weapon when you're wanting to deal with the unbidden, because wouldn't it be great if they simply didn't have shields and you could pull a pulsar out of a box whenever you wanted? On top of that, the fact it constantly damages hostile ships is going to be brilliant when we combine it with the reduced ship speed. If you put one of these things up in a system which already has a minus 50% ship speed, like I think a neutron star, we're going to be getting some devastating combination effects. Let's say you're a bulwark as well, so you're also dealing constant damage to the enemy ship based on their hull points. This is just bizarrely painful and powerful. I cannot wait to see it get abused. It is beautiful. The ancient Irasians used to ask themselves, do we have enough ships? And when they didn't, they would double their ship building capacity to build enough ships. And that is basically what the Irasian Naval Yard does. Every shipyard grants an additional +1 shipyard capacity, and your Starbase gets plus 30% ship build speed. This is with the perk active, I need to point out, so this is the maximum version of it, but basically this can turn each of your 6 shipyard Starbases into a little mini mega shipyard, producing up to 12 ships at a time, and it is not Empire unique. Goodness gracious me, some of these are drastically powerful. Then we come to the Yut, who ask themselves the question, is there a part of the galaxy we should be seeing, and if so, how do we make sure we see it faster? You get +7 sensor range and +14 ship hyperlane detection range. If you put one of these bad boys on a detection starbase, and if you get the Archeo Engineers perk increasing that sensor range from 7 to 10, and you put a listening post down, one starbase can basically act like a sentry array across most of the galaxy. You're looking at somewhere in the region of 20 systems away. This is just, when I saw this, I was honestly in disbelief. These buildings are fantastically powerful. I can't see them remaining this powerful forever. I think there might be some nerfs coming a little bit later down the line, but we will have to see. The bureaucracy must expand to meet the needs of the ever-expanding bureaucracy, and that's where the First League filing officers saunters drunkenly into the room. You get +100 edict fund from each of these planet-unique buildings, so you can put one on every single planet. That means, let's say you've got 20 planets, well that's 2,000 edict fund for your delectation. Plus, you'll get an additional unity from every bureaucrat, manager and priest. You'll get 3 priest jobs, a manager job, and if none of that was enough, yeah, it's just really powerful. Priests and managers additionally produce 1 more amenity on that planet. It's just really good. Keen not to be left in the past, the Voltaean will allow you to push your physics research into the final frontier. You will get +2 physics research from your researchers. That is the first, I think, and only time we have ever seen an increase to the base production of a researcher. Given the number of bonuses you can stack on a researcher, increasing their output from 4 to 6 is absolutely massive. That is a 50% modifier after we've done all of our bonuses. On top of that, you, I think, get not just a regular researcher, this is obviously for a machine empire, but you do get the research director if you're a normal organic empire. Either way, this is just bizarrely powerful from a research perspective. And it is not empire unique. You can slap one of these bad boys down on every planet and boost your physics research just by 50% across the board. I don't know what the devs were thinking with these precursor buildings, but they've made the precursors much more important than ever before. And if you miss out on one, if you miss out on getting there because one of your neighbors has sniped the 6th precursor artifact or precursor discovery before you could get to 6, that is going to feel worse than it has ever felt. And I'm not sure that's fantastic either. There's one final building which I have missed so far, but that's because I was saving it for the special occasion of the end. This does not require you to finish any precursor chain, it is simply a Archeo-technology building, the Ancient Refinery. The question you ask yourself with this one is, do I need more rare resources? And if the answer is yes, here's all the rare resources you might ever need. Plus, 1 translucer, 1 gas refiner, and 1 chemist job. That means you'll be getting rare crystals, volatile motes, and exotic gases just from this one planet unique building. and then on top of that, plus 25% output from all exotic gases, rare crystals and volatile motes from every job. This means that even gas miners will get a buff to their production, and when you take Archeo engineering, this jumps from 25% to plus 40%. It is really very helpful from an economic perspective. All of the Archeo-Tech really does seem to be quite interesting and have some niche uses. There are a few crap buildings, I'm looking at you, bowel food building, but most of the time they do seem to have some very powerful effects that are going to really help out our empire. I mean, you can't feel that bad for the new bowel, because when you get the relic, that is a really good relic, being able to convert worlds into Gaia worlds. So the fact their building is kind of crappy and deals with food is, I guess, reasonable. If you've enjoyed this video about some of the new features we're going to be getting with the next release of Stellaris, and you'd like to find out all about the new primitive insights, which will be reshaping how technology works just a little bit, then click the video on screen now.